Hey, you awesome folks! Thanks for taking this journey of discovery with your guide, Keith Haney. You're listening to the Becoming Bridge Builders podcast, your favorite podcast for everything from racial reconciliation to education innovation, justice reform, and leading change in the 21st century. This podcast is for people who love to be challenged with difficult topics, but want practical solutions to solve these challenging issues. Becoming Bridge Builders makes change possible. Each week on the podcast, Keith invites innovative thought leaders to share how they are building bridges in their area of expertise. You will hear breakthrough ideas and concepts that are changing the world. He's featuring guests who are best-selling authors, leaders at Microsoft, entrepreneurs, leading educators, professors, lawyers, and so many more. Listen in to learn how you can be the bridge to the change you are seeking.
My guest today is Christopher Knudsen, a published author, university instructor, an inventor, and renowned consultant. He currently works as an independent fractional CMO and is a CEO at Stoic Yeti, an advertising agency. He was formerly at CMO at Purple Mattress and has started and sold several companies, including 3D Plus Me, a venture-funded consumer 3D printing and scanning company. As a consultant, Christopher's main focus is helping businesses and ideas flourish alongside technological advancements. We welcome Chris to the show. So good to have you on, Chris. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to ask my guest this question. Give me the best piece of advice you've ever received.
Yeah, the best piece of advice I ever received was not to take all the advice that you're given. And I think that I received that advice from myself, frankly. It was an epiphany that I had where I used to ask for a lot of advice, and I took a step back at one point and said, geez, am I asking the right person for this advice? And I worked for a CEO. It was like he was getting advice from everybody about stuff. He talked to the janitor even, about different things, that people really had no kind of opinion giving, or I should say no right really giving their opinion on. You got to be really careful about people's, what are their motives, what are their biases, family. It's like family has very much have biases. In my world of where I'm working with people to show them a path to self-employment, it can be really dangerous, because if you're taking advice from someone about how to go start a business or how to go start working on your own, and you're not taking that advice from someone who has actually done it, then you're taking advice from someone who may not have they may not be a good source of information for you, frankly.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Chris, I'm always curious with people like yourself who have achieved certain things in life. We always have those people in our lives who came along, who've inspired us, who poured into our lives. This kind of gives my guests a chance to kind of thank those people who we may forget to sometimes thank. So who are those people for you that have inspired you?
That's a great question. I think you're absolutely right. You have to look at who are those people who mentored you, helped you, cut you a break when no one else would cut you a break, and you have to have gratitude for those people, and you should express gratitude for them. In fact, if you have those people in your life and you haven't pulled them aside and said, hey, I really appreciate the thing that you did for me. I just need you to understand that was really important to me and that it helped me. Go and do it. Right? For your listeners, if you have those people, whether it's a mentor, a family member, a pastor, a college professor, whoever that may be, go and express that gratitude to them. In my life, I've had a lot of people like that. I've been really fortunate. I had a mentor that I was given in MBA school who was a best-selling author, and he gave me a lot of really good life direction. He really helped me get onto a path of figuring out a lot of things from, I was struggling as a manager at the time. I was struggling as a father at the time. A lot of those things that I needed to hear, he was able to be a sounding board and give me back what I'll call just invaluable advice. And that person was Chuck Coonrad, who is the author of a book called The Game of Work, which is a great book about management. It was written in the 1980s, but it's a valuable book today for anybody that's interested in that topic to go pick up. And I was fortunate enough to have him as a mentor, and he's just one of many people that I have a lot of gratitude for, because they spent time. They weren't paid. They were just my friend, and they mentored me, and they helped me get on a path that's led me to a lot of success.
I love that. I'm also curious to learn about people like yourself who have written books and are pouring into other people. Kind of give us your personal journey.
Yeah, that's a long and kind of crazy story, and I wrote a whole book about that. The book is called "Trust Me, I'm a Consultant," and and it's meant to be a fun book, but it's also meant to be a very informative book, right? So it does have my story in there of how I got to where I am going or where I'm at. There's a lot of information in there about how to cross the bridge from employment to self-employment. You may have seen the third Indiana Jones movie where the Indiana Jones has to walk across the invisible bridge and he has to take a leap of faith. And I equate that frequently to the world of self-employment, where if you're employed right now, but you want to go out and you want to do a thing on your own, you're going to have to take a little bit of a leap of faith, right, to be able to go and do it. And there was a time in my life where I was working at a really large agency about 13 years ago, and I noticed that there was a really big need in the market for outsourced chief marketing officers or fractional chief marketing officers. And I took that leap of faith out on that bridge that seemed invisible, but it was there, of self-employment. And I stepped out on that bridge and I've never looked back. I always said to myself, if I can't figure it out in 6 months, then I'm going to go get a job. And I've been very fortunate that I was able to figure it out. I didn't have a blueprint for that, how to go do that. And most people don't have a blueprint. And so I sat down and wrote the blueprint. I wanted to write a very detailed book on how to do that. The problem with a lot of business books is they're kind of a 30,000 foot brush of a topic, right? And they don't give you a lot of detail. But I wanted to give the reader a lot of detail and a lot of value in that detail about how to take the appropriate steps to go and get out there on their own and be successful at it.
So I love that. So tell us, because I know the audience who's tuning into this particular podcast, seeing the title about self-employment, kind of give us kind of what you learned in that book that you put about the blueprint for people who want to know how to do that.
Yeah, the biggest thing is probably realizing that, well, there's a couple of things I'll touch on. One, you're probably smarter than you think. That's the first component of it. And if you're a technician and you have a skill set, like you're an engineer or an accountant, a graphic designer, a computer programmer, some type of skill set like that, those skill sets, those technical skill sets lend themselves very well in self-employment. So you can leave the world of employment where you may be an engineer for a firm or you may be an accountant at a place, and you can go out and strike out on your own. The reason why most people don't do it is because of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And when you remove the fear and the uncertainty and the doubt, and you are informed on how to go and do it, then it becomes a lot less scary and a lot less risky to go out and do it. So I really am writing out a step-by-step guide here, where if you're sitting in a company and you're trying to figure out how to get out and escape what I'll call traditional 9-to-5 employment, it's really that path to be able to get there. A lot of people are dabbling in this world right now. They have a job and maybe they moonlight. They're doing, let's say they're a computer programmer at a company and they've taken on a project because they somehow came across that project and another company has hired them and given them a little extra cash so they can take their family to Disneyland or they can buy a new car or whatever it may be. And they're working on the side and they're realizing that they really like that component of working on their own, but they don't know how to leave that 9-to-5 job. And in that sense, they're straddling the world of employment and self-employment. They're just straddling that world. And my book is really a guide to show them how to step out of that employment component and put both feet into the self-employment component, and do so feeling comfortable, right? Not feeling like they're taking this massive risk, but like their house is on the line, their retirement is on the line. And they're able to get out there and really be successful doing it. Not just like survive, but thrive, right? You want to thrive. You want to own your time and you want to make more money than you're making right now. And the book is a guide to be able to do that.
So that's great, Chris. I'm curious as I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I want to do this. So what are some advice you have for people who want to take this leap? What are some first steps, some basic things they want to know to ease that fear that a lot of people is like, I want to do this, but I'm afraid, like you just said, if I take this leap, I'm going to lose my house and my family.
Right. Yeah. The first step is self-evaluation, right? I call it internalization, where you really looking inward at yourself and I want you to answer this question specifically. And the question is, are you in your company, are you an 80%er or are you a 20%er? And what that means is, and there's been plenty of studies that have been done on this, is that most of the value in a company, most of the work done in a company that really drives it forward is done by 20% of the people that work inside that company. The other 80% are not really contributing, frankly. And so you have to ask yourself, are you a 20%er or an 80%er? And 80%ers are like kind of your typical just kind of employees. They need to be told what to do. They need to have a boss. They're late to work continually. They complain. They're not self-starters. And the 20% are basically self-starters and self-selectors into success, I'll call it, right? So if you're in that 20% group, you set yourself up really well for self-employment, because when you're out working on your own, you don't have a boss looking over your shoulder telling you, hey, what are you doing? What are you working on? Whatever. You have to actually be that boss, and you've got to go out and be successful and be that self-starter in order to make it, right? So are you a self-starter? Are you capable of getting out there and making things happen for yourself? Or are you somebody that needs to be told what to do? Because if you're being told what to do, you're just really not going to make it in that world of self-employment.
I love that. So once you get beyond the fact of realizing whether you're 20% or 80%er, what are some other things you should ask yourself about, am I ready to go do this as a self-employed person?
Yeah, that's a great question. It comes down to a lot of what I'm going to call high EQ skills. So EQ is your emotional quotient, which is not to be confused with your IQ, your intellectual quotient, right? It's or your intelligence quotient. It is things like, how good of a communicator are you? Are you capable of being mentally and physically present with the client? Are you a solutions-oriented type of individual where you look at the problem and you don't look at the problem as the problem, you just look for the solution in the problem, right? Are you respectful to people who are around you? Are you not passive-aggressive? Are you a bridge builder, right? Are you a bridge builder? Are you a peacemaker? Are you somebody who's able to bring people together? Are you above, like in the office in your current environment, are you above inter-office rivalries? But you really have to take a look at things like your capability to pay attention to detail, your ability to be on time, your organizational skills, your execution on these high EQ types of attributes. Are you, emotionally available? Are you intellectually available? Do you have real intent? Do you have empathy? Do you have integrity, right? Those are all important components that you have to have in order to go out and be successful. When you walk into a company as a consultant or as an outside contractor, people look at you differently. They expect you to act differently. They expect you to be a higher performer than their employees, whether that's right or wrong. In fact, I frequently have said to a lot of my clients, I've said to them, hey, look, if you held your own employees to the same standard that you hold me, you'd be a lot farther down the road as a business. Because
Right.
they're just holding their employees to, like, I'm going to call it a lower standard than they're holding their consultants and their contractors to. So you got to evaluate that for yourself. If you're ready to really be involved in this world of self-employment, just understand that you're going to be treated a little bit differently. You're going to be held to a higher degree and you really need to know if you fit into that bucket in terms of all of those kind of attributes that I just laid out for you.
How important is it, once you know whether you're a 20% or 80%er, whether you know if you're a self-starter, how critical is it for the person starting out as a self-employed person to have a clear picture of their goals and values as they begin their company?
Yeah, it's super important, right? I mean, you can't go into it without a roadmap. And that, what you're talking about building is a roadmap for success. I tell everybody to really sit down and write out what you think the next 6 months are going to look like, right? So I'm starting right now, and what does it look like? How am I going to go get clients? I spent a lot of time in the book talking about how to get clients, because that other thing that's typically missing is, especially if you're somebody like in a high technical skill set, like a computer programmer and engineer, those are typically not salespeople. They're usually not salespeople. You have to have some degree of sales competency to get out on your own and to operate on your own. And so I talk a lot in the book about what are those best practices in sales? How are you actually going to go get those clients? How do you talk to them? How do you close a deal with them, right? All those types of things, so that it's there's really a how-to guide there on how to do that component, because I find that that's really the biggest thing that's missing for most people, is that they just don't know how to go out there and be a salesperson.
So I figured out that part. Now my key question for a lot of people is, if I've never hired an employee before,
Yeah.
how do I know if I'm hiring the right kind of people to surround me in my new company?
Well, this is a great question. So I'm going to call this the 2 interview process. Okay. So I was actually just explaining this to my son the other day. In a company, when you're interviewing people for a position, there's a formal interview process that you go through. When you find someone, their resume looks like they're a fit, or they're referred by someone, you bring them in. You're going to go through a formal process of interview. There's all kinds of legalities related to interviews, right? There's questions you can ask, there's questions you can't ask, there's questions that you should avoid, and there's questions that you definitely legally and otherwise want to ask, right? And so it's really hard to find out if somebody is, and I think this might answer the question right here, a cultural fit to the business in what I would call a standard legal type of an interview. There's a real disconnect there. It's hard to get down to really get to know each other, right? And so the 2 interview process, the thing that I talk about here is that if they've passed that initial interview process and you can figure out that they're a highly qualified person, they've passed the referral process where you're going to go and you're going to talk to other people about who that individual is, if they're qualified and what they're like, is to do something, a really, in fact, you don't call it interview, you just call them up and you're like, hey, I've been, thinking about an interview, I've been doing some due diligence, I would love to take you to lunch and just talk a little bit more about the job. And of course, they're going to say yes because they're trying to get work with you. And take that person to lunch and be sure that you tell them this is not an interview. Just so you know, we're just 2 people at lunch. We're just getting to know each other. This is not a formal interview. It's not part of the interview process. I just want to get to know you a little bit better. And what they do is they drop their guard and they tell you about who they are as an individual. And that allows you to be able to assess better typically it allows you to be able to better assess if they're a good cultural fit for your company. And so take them to lunch and be informal. Don't ask inappropriate questions, of course.
Right.
But people will naturally, in the course of, they'll tell you about their family. They'll tell you about all kinds of things, right? Just in the course of just having a guards down lunch type of a meeting where it's just 2 people sitting there enjoying each other's company. They're going to tell you a lot of things about them that you wouldn't learn in a job interview, that are important things to know, I think, when you're going through the process of hiring somebody, and are going to give you a really good idea if they're a good cultural fit or not.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And now a word from one of our sponsors, For Freedom Mobile. If you're using AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, then you're being tracked. Mobile providers collect your location, communications, internet activity, even your financial transaction. They sell that data to anyone willing to pay for it and provide it to the government without a warrant. Switch to For Freedom Mobile, and you won't ever have to worry about big tech or Big Brother tracking you through your mobile phone again. For Freedom Mobile provides secure, unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data for just $29.99 a month, and it includes free internet roaming in over 200 countries. Sign up for the service by visiting forfreedommobile.com and using the promo code BridgeBuilders to get your first month for only $9.99. See forfreedommobile.com for details, just like the number 4, freedommobile.com. So I'm curious, Chris, when you're hiring those people for the first time, do you recommend to especially employers to give them like a trial period, or is that like a big no-no?
No, trial periods are great. I use a trial period in my own business. It's a 90-day trial period where we tell people, in fact, in some jobs, some job types in our business, we'll tell them, hey, what we would prefer to do is hire you as a contractor on a 90-day contract. And what we're going to do is work with you on a 90-day contract, and we're going to assess your work ethic and your knowledge and everything else. And at the end of the 90 days, if you've gone through this process and really established that you know what you're doing and you're a good cultural fit, then we're going to put you on employment at that point. We're going to make you a W-2 employee, and we're going to hire you on full time. And I think that's actually a great route to go. Now, you may just want to put them on W-2 and just tell them like, hey, there's a probationary period. It's 90 days where we assess you. But it's not uncommon. It's really not an uncommon thing. And I think it's a really good best practice when hiring people initially.
That's good. So I'm sure, I'm thinking about all the things that a new company has to figure out. I'm sure accounting is a big thing that a lot of companies are trying to figure out. Any thoughts or advice for the new person who's a self-employed person trying to figure out the whole tax code thing?
Yeah, the taxes are not as scary as they sound. My general advice there is to you want to stay away from what's called self-employment or SC taxes as much as possible. And the correct way to do that is to set up like an S corporation where you're going to run a W-2 payroll on yourself. And that's how I'm set up in my company. I take a W-2 paycheck, and then I do distributions if I have profits and things like that. But in general, don't be afraid of taxes. In fact, there's a lot of tax benefits to being self-employed. I mean, you can write off insurance is an expense now that you can write off against your taxes. Automobiles in a lot of cases, your gasoline that you use for automobiles to going to and from appointments and your mileage, a home office, your internet access. These are all things that people with normal W-2 type of employment, they can't write off those expenses that are normal everyday life expenses because they're not self-employed. So when you're self-employed, you have all these really cool things suddenly that you can write off against your taxes that you weren't able to write off before. And so just know, I think that it's a great question because a lot of people, I think, view taxation as a major downside of self-employment, where if you're doing it correctly, you can get a ton of benefit out of the tax code.
Great. So I didn't ask you about your book. You kind of mentioned it, but so tell us about your book. Trust Me, I'm a Consultant.
Great. Yeah. The book is, it is a guide for those of you who are listening who have a really good technical skill set, who are trying to figure out how to leave the world of employment and own your own business and be self-employed. And the advantages of this is a lot of what I talked about. Number one being ownership of your own time. You can work as much or as little as you want as a consultant, depending on your personal experience, right, or your personal situation. But I'll give you an example of that. My time is really important to me. I mean, there's things that I want to do in life that I couldn't do if I had a 9-to-5 job. And I have found that, like I went for many years where I didn't work on Fridays, for example. On Fridays, I wanted to work on other things, or I wanted to go invest in hobbies and do things with my family and stuff like that. So I set up my practice so that I was working Monday through Thursday, and I didn't have appointments or any of that type of stuff on a Friday. And it was pretty easy. I still made really good money working Monday through Thursday, and I had Fridays off, and I was able to find this really nice balance. And so the book is really about how do I cross that bridge, again, that Indiana Jones invisible bridge, and get to the world of self-employment and do it comfortably and not have the fears that are typically associated with self-employment, and really own my own time, right? So how do I make more money than I'm making right now? How do I own my own time? How do I create my own destiny and really leverage this to go and make a really wonderful life for myself? And that's what the book is generally about, is that component right there, and all the pieces of it to come together to really put together that plan that puts you in a spot where you can go win in self-employment.
I love it. So for the person listening going, I've been wanting to do this, the invisible bridge is in front of me, give them something to help them take that first step on that invisible bridge. So the first step is to start talking to people, really. So when you were a kid, your mom told you not to talk to strangers. And now that you're an adult, and now that you're someone who's seeking to go out and be self-employed, you have to start talking to strangers. What that means is networking and getting out and meeting people who are potentially clients or prospective clients of the types of services that you have. And I like to tell people, just start asking people if they have a need in their business. Do you have a need for this thing? Like, how do you deal with this particular thing? Like, let's say you're a graphic designer and you're trying to figure out how you can go be a graphic designer, not work in a company where you want to be an independent graphic designer. Start talking to your neighbors and people who are around you that own businesses, or maybe they don't even own a business. Maybe they work in marketing and it's the neighbor down the street, and you just say to them, like, hey, are you guys ever looking for help with graphic design? Like, how do you guys think about that? Hire those services or whatever. In professions like graphic design, computer programming, engineering, you're going to find that those are very, very high demand. Very high demand from a consulting component, right? Where people, they're looking to hire, maybe not necessarily full-time help for that, or they are looking to hire full-time help, but they'll take an independent consultant to come in and do the work for them, right? So
it really just takes talking to people and getting yourself in the middle of those conversations where you're able to to find out what the demand is for that thing that you do. It's really, that's the thing right there. So that's like kind of step number one, is just start talking, and even just telling friends and family in the community, like, yeah, I'm in the market for doing some independent consulting work on whatever your profession is, accounting, graphic design, these types of things that we've been talking about. Even just doing that, you might drum up just a few jobs that you can go do that bring you some really nice income on the side. That's kind of that step part, that first part where you might still have a job, and then you might be doing some work on the side. And so you're straddling both of these worlds, and that can be kind of difficult, but it gives you a really good taste of what's out there. What does it look like? What can I expect? What type of money am I going to make? And you can really decide if you like doing that work or not without burning the bridge of employment, I should say, and you can get out there and make it happen.
Great. So, Chris, what are you excited about in this season of your life?
Oh, well, I just had my first grandchild. Well, he's a year old now.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, it's great. My kids are all getting older, and my kids are a lot more fun that they're older rather than when they were little kids. I like them as adults a lot. I love them as kids, but it's fun to watch them prosper as adults as well. And I've got a grandchild now, and I'm looking forward to more grandchildren and spending as much time with them as I can. And I've put myself into a position with the type of work that I do that I'm able to go and do that. Which I think is another benefit of getting out into this world of self-employment, is putting yourself in a spot where you can go and spend more time on those things that are more important. And that's what I'm looking forward to in this stage of my life, is having that ability and that capability to really get out there and spend time with my family and do the things that I want to do, rather than, slugging into the office every day and not wanting to be there. And it just feels, it's a great place to be. It's a great feeling to have that feeling of independence.
I love it. I love to ask my guests this question. What legacy do you want to leave in the world?
I hope that the legacy is I was able to take a really hard topic, like how do I go and do this thing? I was able to take it out of my head, put it into a book, and that's the legacy, right? Other than the obvious stuff, like, I was a good in the community, good in my church, good with my family, did all the right things in that regard. I think then it turns into things like, hey, I was able to provide a lot of value to a lot of other people by writing a book that showed them a path to get them to the thing that I have, which is a thing that I really enjoy.
I love it. Anything I haven't asked you, Chris, that I should have asked you?
That's a great question. That's actually a question that I use a lot too. Which, hey, is there something I didn't ask you that I should have asked you? It's there's obviously a lot of other places that we can go, a lot of other directions we can go on the topic. I think that the book is available on Amazon. Maybe that's one thing you didn't ask me is, hey, where can I actually get this book? It's available on Amazon right now. And I think by the time when you post this, it'll probably still be on pre-order. But pick up the book if this is a topic that's interesting to you. It'd be great to get your feedback on how much you enjoy it and like it.
All right. Where can people find you on social media and connect with you there?
Yeah, there's a number of different places where you can find me mostly on Instagram at Chris Knudsen, all just one word. And you can find my website at sevenfigure.consulting. And that's not a .com, it's just sevenfigure.consulting.
Well, thanks, Chris. This was a great conversation, and I love the energy and information you brought to the audience. And hopefully it inspired somebody who's got that one foot close to the invisible bridge, but ready to walk across, that they feel confident now to take that step and see what God has in mind for them and their families as they take that step of being a self-employed person.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was great to be on. I hope that the audience found a lot of value in the conversation, and really look forward to everyone's success.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at bkeithhaney and on Getter and Twitter at RevHeadpin, or on his website at alightbreaksthrough.org. Thanks again, and tune in next time.
Do you know that most entrepreneurs hit a revenue ceiling and have no idea why? They're working harder, spending more money, running more ads, but revenue stays flat. My friend Dr. Noah St. John calls this the invisible break. He's giving our listeners a free revenue ceiling audit to help you see what's really holding you back. You'll get a free 30-day membership to NoahBot, giving you access to Dr. Noah's 30 years of experience to help you reach your next level. But hurry, because there's only 50 available this month. So if you're tired of being stuck at the same revenue level and want to finally break through, get your free revenue ceiling audit at drnoahvault.com in the affiliate link that'll be listed in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at bkeithhaney and on Getter and Twitter at RevHeadpin. Thanks again, and tune in next time.